Let's talk about Johne's disease, because it amazes me how many people don't actually know about it. What are the clinical signs that you're going to see? You are going to see a bottleneck appearance. You're going to see a cow with a great appetite, but constantly losing weight, so they look like a walking skeleton. You're also going to see a shit-covered tail with pipe stream diarrhea that will hit you 6 feet behind them. When I say pipe stream diarrhea, I mean watery diarrhea with no consistency to it at all. Johne's disease is caused by a bacteria called Mycobacterium avium subspecies paratuberculosis, which essentially causes inflammatory bowel disease to an extreme level in cows, with significant thickening to the intestinal wall to the point that the little villi that are supposed to be on a healthy intestine are gone. Making it so that those cows cannot absorb nutrition through the feed that they are getting. So it doesn't matter what you pour to them, they're not going to put weight on, simply because they cannot absorb it through their intestinal tract like they're supposed to. Majority of the time, Johne's disease is bought into a herd, unfortunately, and that leads to people not knowing that they may have it or that it's going to rear its ugly head at some point. It typically infects cattle under the age of 1 year and then will actually start showing clinical signs when they are 3 years or above. That is what textbooks say. That is what the USDA says as far as their Johne's management. I will tell you from real life experience, this is not the case. It does whatever the F it wants. Cows over the age of 1 can ingest it. It will pass through their system, but it should not cause disease. However, again, from personal experience, unfortunately, it can, even in older cows. And that's because if they ingest a high enough amount, it can actually infect them and cause them to become clinical. It is shed through feces, milk, colostrum. Fecal oral transmission is the biggest way that calves will catch it. So even if you have a single cow in your herd, if she poops somewhere, another cow lays down and gets it on her udder, that calf goes to suck and they are going to ingest it and then could potentially become infected. So very, very tricky little creature to get rid of. Testing for Johne's can be done either by blood or by feces. Fecal testing is the more reliable of the two. Blood testing will typically tell you whether or not they have essentially been exposed to it at some point in their life, but not necessarily infected, whereas fecal testing will tell you if they are actively shedding the bacteria. The problem with this is even cows that are infected can go undetected if they are not actively shedding the bacteria at the time that you pull that fecal sample. It is very stable in the environment, and it can live for over 12 months in manure on the ground. So it can be very difficult to get rid of. The best way to get rid of it is to truly, completely get rid of your manure and start fresh around your property. When you are managing your manure and getting rid of it, you do not want to spread it on pastures or fields that are going to be used for feed. The reason being, with this bacteria being very hardy in the environment, when those plants in a pasture begin to grow back, or those plants that you put it on a field and say you're going to chop corn for silage or alfalfa, as those plants start to grow, that bacteria can actually get on the leaves of that plant, and then when you harvest it or allow cows to graze, they can then ingest the bacteria and become infected. Cows that have been exposed to Johne's cows and are being quarantined before moving should be put somewhere for at least a week to essentially pass any of the bacteria that could potentially be moving through their system before they're exposed to younger cattle again. It is not something that you want in your herd because it is a pain in the ass to get rid of, no matter how strict you may be. If you do have it, I highly encourage people to try to do every 6-month Johne's testing. if that's not possible, at least do every year at preg check. Like I said before as well, they may start shedding it at, or they're supposed to start shedding it at 3 years or above. However, I've seen cows starting to shed it at a year old, 2 years old. Anytime that they get stressed is when they'll typically start shedding this bacteria. So preg check, running through the chute for vaccines or other things like that. Weaning calves, trailering them for some reason to be moved, like to and from pasture. Sorting can sometimes be just enough stress to cause them to start shedding the bacteria and become clinical. Some of these cows will actually start shedding it so heavily when they're stressed that they may die even a couple days after, which is quite unfortunate. They can go downhill really, really quickly. If you're selling these cattle at the sale barn, it is highly encouraged to sell them as cull only, even if they are bred, so that somebody else does not end up with them. Let me know what questions you have about Johne's disease or Johne's testing. I unfortunately know far too much, but I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you may have.